Mr. Rampelmeyer, you're representing the petitioner, Alexis Gardenhire, are you not, sir?
I am, Your Honor.
And are you ready to proceed with this hearing for temporary orders?
We are, Your Honor.
And Ms. Harris, on behalf of the respondent, Mr. Duckworth, are you also ready?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Mr. Rampelmeyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, before
hang on for a minute. For the record, John Klein is present in the courtroom, as is Christy Ford. They are experts, so the court will permit them to remain in the hearing and presence of the courtroom because of their status as expert witnesses on behalf of the petitioner. Mr. Rampelmeyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we have, among the exhibits we have presented to the court is my client's financial information statement for temporary hearings.
I have received that.
And then also for the court's convenience, we have the petitioner's summary relief requested, which is petitioner's exhibit number 1.
All right. And that petitioner's 1 would be the summary of relief requested, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. For demonstrative purposes, petitioner's 1 is admitted, as is. And have you marked the financial information statement as an exhibit?
I did not mark that as an exhibit, Your Honor. I've never quite known whether they're really exhibits or whether they're just there because the court requires them. So,
all right. Then let's say you said you have 5 exhibits, and that would not include the financial information statement.
No, Ms. Harris has 5. I have 5 if you include the financial information statement. Right. That would total 5.
All right. And so we can mark that financial information statement as petitioner's 5 for demonstrative purposes?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And we will do that. And it is admitted for that purpose.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the parties have reached an agreement, and Ms. Harris will correct me if I'm wrong, on child support.
All right.
The agreement is that Mr. Duckworth will pay child support in the amount of $1,200 a month. Also that my client, Ms. Gardenhire, she'll be required to maintain health and dental insurance coverage on the children who are the subject of this suit. And that the parties will each pay 50% of whatever insurance, whether healthcare expenses of the children that are not paid or reimbursed by insurance.
All right.
Did I get that correct, Ms. Harris?
I was just telling him that I hadn't not mentioned that to him yet, but that was standard.
All right. Okay. So, Ms. Harris, is that your understanding of the agreement?
In regards to child support, medical support, yes, Judge.
All right. In regard to child support and medical support, Ms. Gardenhire, is that your understanding of the agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
So that's an agreement that you made?
Yes, Your Honor.
So that is your agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Duckworth, same questions. Is that your understanding of the agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
And so that's an agreement that you made?
Yes, Your Honor.
So that is your agreement?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Rampelmeyer?
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. May I call my first witness?
You may.
Your Honor, I would like to call Alexis Renee Gardenhire, who's the petitioner.
Ms. Gardenhire, please raise it.
I'm so sorry, Judge. Before we start, do we have a time limit and witness limit?
You know, I always get myself in trouble when I do this. I'm gonna leave it up to you, and if I think it's going long, I'll sure tell you. Is that all right?
As long as you don't wait till my case to decide that we're going too long.
Do what now?
As long as you don't wait until my case to decide we're going too long.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
We'll go to 459, Your Honor.
Do what?
We'll go to 459.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
The thing is, you know, I used to practice law too, and I know how this works. If you give a lawyer 30 minutes, they'll take 30 minutes. If you give them 2 hours, they'll take 2 hours. So that's just kind of the way it is. So,
you know, hold on, please. Christy Ford keeps bopping around.
Ms. Ford, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry. I think I was having problems with my laptop, so I switched to a different laptop. Sorry about that.
All right. You're all right. Mr. Ramplemeyer, I think we were talking about time. I would expect both of you to have an hour apiece.
Mhm. That's what we had planned on, Your Honor.
All right, good. Now, I will say this too. I noticed that attached to the original petition is a statement by Ms. Gardenhire,
Yes, Your Honor.
and I would permit that to be introduced as an exhibit with the understanding that, and that may shorten the time. The court wants to allow each lawyer to try their case. I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but that will shorten the time with this understanding. And Ms. Harris, this is important to you, that you would be able to then cross-examine Ms. Gardenhire on the supporting declaration, which is attached to the petition. And then the court would not consider any inadmissible hearsay, which is contained within that supporting declaration. Although I will say I have read it and I didn't see any. So there is that. So, Mr. Ramplemeyer, that may shorten your presentation.
That will greatly shorten it, Your Honor, because we were just going to go through a lot of that as words, and I may
Right.
skip through some of it, but I will not be doing it the way I was going to do it.
All right, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, as I think we left off with me calling my client as a witness.
All right. And now you need to raise your right hand, please, Ms. Gardenhire. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Ramplemeyer.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
Lexis Renee Gardenhire.
And you are the petitioner in this suit,
Yes, sir.
and you have two children.
Yes, sir.
What are their names?
Angelina Susie Rose Duckworth and Bruce William Charming Duckworth.
And in our pleadings, your attorney messed up and wrote Rosie instead of Rose. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's the correct second middle name of your daughter is Rose.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you have you read your declaration that the judge was just referring to before you signed it. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the statements in that declaration are true and correct.
Yes, sir.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
And how long have you've lived in Pampa for 11 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you lived with Mr. Duckworth?
11. I resided with him for 11 years.
Of those, so the whole time in Pampa?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Duckworth, Bruce Marcus Duckworth is the children's father. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you and he are not married.
No.
And he has one other child who is not yours. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what is the name of that child?
Julian Aiden Duckworth.
Okay. And were you involved in raising that child?
Yes, sir.
But that child is not the subject of this suit. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have any legal rights regarding that child?
No, sir.
Okay. Where does that child reside?
Part-time with his mother, Bruce Marcus Duckworth's mother, Eileen Hanen, because he's out of town for work, and then part-time, I believe, with him.
How often is he out of town for work?
I would say a fair estimate would be 7 to 8 months out of the year. Since we left, he has been gone for, I believe, over about 3 months for work. So from November till now.
Since you separated, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. So he's in approximately 5 months, he's been gone about 3.5 months. Is that right?
Probably a little bit less, but yes, I feel like that's a fair.
What does he do for a living?
He's a bricklayer for the union.
Okay. And so his work takes him out of town.
Yes.
Does he let you know when he's coming back into town?
No, sir.
Has that been a problem?
Yes.
How has that been a problem?
Mainly because we get on a set schedule, my kids and I, and we'll be going. It's just not, there's no consistency. And then when he gets back into town, he'll say, hey, I'm here the day that he gets there or the day after, and demand to see his kids and us to change the schedule that I've already set out and structured for my children.
Has this had an effect on the children?
Yes, it has.
What effect has it had on the children? Now let's start with your daughter.
On my daughter, she gets extreme anxiety whenever he comes back into town. She gets stomach aches and headaches, and most recently she's been peeing into towels after a visitation with her father. Her behaviors just regress. She stays hip to hip with me or one of my parents. She refuses to go to school at times because she's scared that he's going to show up there.
Does she show any of these signs when she knows that he's out of town?
No, sir.
Okay. How has it manifested itself with your son?
My son has baby talk whenever he speaks on the phone with his father. So he'll be talking like a normal 4-year-old, and then all of a sudden he'll revert into baby talking. He has always been a very independent player. He'll go and play and has a huge imagination, but he takes on more of a stoic personality and more like an adult personality, to where he won't go and play. He stays right by one of our sides, almost like his sister, keeping tabs, and he also doesn't regulate his emotions nearly as well.
What have you done to help your children through this process?
I reached out to John Klein to get counseling for myself, and within that process, he also referred me to Christy Ford, just to understand more of what was going on with my children, and to get their advice. I have also started taking parenting classes, focusing on my mental health and my children's mental health, and then also limiting visitation once certain discoveries have been made throughout the process.
Okay. What would be those discoveries?
The main big one that at first I thought that my kids were just going through an adjustment phase, because their family had been torn apart. And I thought behavioral issues were going to happen. And I tried to work the best that I could, but the discoveries that I made, the main one was that my 8-year-old daughter has domestic PTSD, and that is, upon more research, I was notified that it was because of her father.
I'm going to object. This assumes facts not in evidence, and she's not qualified to testify about this.
I'll consider it for the value, the credibility of the witness.
Okay.
What else have you done to help them through all this?
I've just been there consistently supporting them. I've tried not to change their schedule too much. I have a very structured environment that they're in. They know what to expect. I talk to them. I just remain supportive and talk them through things, and continue.
Yeah, permit me to declare my ruling on your objection, Ms. Harrison. I was searching for the word, and I'll give it the appropriate weight.
Thank you.
You stated in your affidavit that Mr. Duckworth has anger issues.
Yes, sir.
What typically, how do they manifest themselves?
It depends on what is angering him. He will be verbally abusive. He will be physically abusive. He destroys property. he'll use fear tactics, manipulation, guilting, blaming, anything to basically get his way in the moment that he's angry.
Has he threatened to cut off financial assistance?
Yes, and he has.
Okay. Since the day of separation, has he been providing support to you? Has he-
Yes.
Okay. What financial support has he been providing you?
$300 a week.
Okay. And has there ever been times when he didn't pay it on a weekly basis in that time since the separation?
I believe in the beginning, yes, but that was discussed between Bruce and I. He was expressing to me that he was trying to get back on his feet and that he would catch up with the payments. And it was a mutual agreement that was really not a fight at all.
Did he catch up with the payments?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had issues with, excuse me, has Mr. Duckworth had issues with alcohol?
Yes.
What can you highlight for the court some of what those issues are?
He doesn't have a limit on if he does drink, he doesn't stop drinking to the point where he is completely inebriated and has no regard for anybody or anything around him, including the children in the house. It's his house. He doesn't care if he wakes them up. And also just following me around when he's drunk and profanities, breaking me down as a person, belittling me, smacking my hands as hard as he could when I threatened to call the police to make it look like I hit him. And he said, if you call them, it's going to make you look like you're doing something, not just me, and you'll be arrested.
Does he have any issues with drugs?
Yes.
Okay, what kind of drugs?
Most recently he's always smoked marijuana. But he also has taken hydrocodone. I believe that he got fentanyl-laced ones off the street. He's taken his son Julian's ADHD medication. He has gotten muscle relaxers from coworkers. He has been to the pavilion twice. The first time was because he was doing meth. There was at one point in time where he was doing whippets in the shop that he used to work with, or work at, I should say.
Has he ever told you about cheating on drug tests?
Yes.
What has he said?
What he does is he has either a friend, family member pee into a container, and he carries it with a thermometer to keep it at temperature, and then he'll pour it into the cup once the temperature is tested to pass a drug test. And he has also said that he can feed a hair follicle if he needed to, as far as using, I think they have special shampoos or something.
So as part of the relief that you're asking for the court is that he submit to random drug testing, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And we have specified in the summary relief requested exactly what we're asking that drug testing to be. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we've also asked him to take anger management classes in person, correct?
Yes.
And there's one at Amarillo College.
Yes, sir.
And we're asking that he take that one and file with the court a certificate of completion. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Has he been involved much with parenting the children?
No, sir.
Okay. When since the separation, how often have the children gone with him?
I would say at first, initially the children didn't have any contact with him from, I would say, November 5th to about the 19th of November. They just were really traumatized and didn't want to speak with him. After that time,
speculation as to if the children were traumatized and what they wanted.
Sustained.
What was the question again? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
How often have they seen him since the date of separation? How often have they been with him without you present since the day of separation? You had stated initially not much.
No,
But
not much. A lot of the initial visitation happened outside of my parents' house where I could watch. And then there was a point of time where they would go for very short periods of time to spend time with him and what was supposed to be supervised visitation underneath his family that we had agreed upon. And then from, I would say, January till now, and especially since I have been involved with the counselors and everything, I would say total hours would be a generous amount, would be less than 36 hours total since January till now.
with them, with him, with the children and not with you,
No, but I was there for
Okay.
a lot of it.
you were there for most of that.
Yes,
correct?
yes, sir.
Okay. Do you feel that he could benefit from an in-person parenting class?
Absolutely.
Does when you guys have lived, when you guys were together and the times when he was actually at the house, what kind of parenting did he display?
He didn't really display much parenting for the fact that when he came into town, he would sleep all day. And I would have to notify him of different events and stuff going on. Some he would make it to, and some he wouldn't. Mostly he would come home, sleep for days at a time. He'd wake up at 8 o'clock to make sure, the kids were already in bed. I had already taken care of everything. And then, he'd have his demands of me. But when I did there at the end, whenever I wanted to, I didn't have a want to have him involved in the parenting just because he would take it too far with the kids or get really frustrated with the kids, and the kids didn't understand why he didn't want to spend time with them.
So do you think he would benefit if he took in-person parenting classes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has he ever physically hit you?
Yes, sir.
And you describe it in your affidavit, grabbing your wrists, holding you down. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Has he left bruises?
Yes, sir.
What has he sexually abused you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that you described that in your affidavit as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you asking that the court appoint you as a temporary sole managing conservator and him as a possessory conservator?
Yes, sir.
And is there an issue with Mr. Duckworth going to the children's schools and extracurricular activities?
At this point, yes, because
What is that issue?
the issue is that those are places that the kids feel safe, and as of right now, my kids don't feel safe. And I don't want those environments to be tainted by them feeling unsafe and not wanting to go, much like my daughter refusing to go to school the day after her dad showed up. I just don't feel like that would be beneficial to them at this point.
So you're asking that he, even if he's a possessory conservator, that he not have the right to attend their school or extracurricular activities?
Yes, sir.
And you're also asking that there be a temporary injunction in addition to the court standing order that would enjoin him from being present at or interfering with the children's individual counseling, school activities, or extracurricular activities.
Yes, sir.
And you're also asking as a temporary injunction that he be enjoined from consuming alcohol or any controlled substance for which he does not have a current valid prescription within the 12 hours before or during each of his periods of possession or access to the children.
Yes, sir.
It's important that he be sober.
Yes.
Okay. Would you ultimately would you like him to become sober?
Yes, sir.
But you understand that he can't be required to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Because of the domestic violence that you've testified about, and that's in your affidavit, you're also asking that he take a batterer intervention and prevention program. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you're asking that it be the 24-week in-person one offered by Family Support Services.
Yes.
And for the batterers intervention and prevention program, for the anger management, and for the parenting classes, for each of those, you're asking that he pay the cost of those classes.
Yes, sir.
And you're asking that he file with the court a certificate of completion for each one of them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In terms of possession or access of the children, what are you asking for that the court decide? Are you asking that the court just not have any at this time?
I would rather him not have any access at this time.
And you're asking that the court suspend his visits until he demonstrates sobriety and a satisfactory completion of these services?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If the court decides not to do that, you have in your summary relief requested an alternative request as far as possession goes. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in there, it says no possession or access to the children until the week of June 2nd of this year. Why is that?
I want to provide my children a break to be able to, one, for Angelina to be able to open up and confide more and kind of be more relaxed, to go to her counselor and be able to talk about things, and not be on edge all the time. As far as Bruce goes, it's the same thing. I feel like they both need a break from the emotional turmoil that all this has brought on.
And then beginning in that week in June, the first week in June, you're under the alternative schedule, you're proposing an hour per week of therapeutic counseling with Katie Klein, who's a licensed professional counselor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we have in our summary relief requested detailed what would be in this step one, correct?
Yes.
And it would go for 8 weeks. It could go longer if Katie is taking a vacation,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes.
And if he misses one, not due to Katie or your responsibility, let's say you failed to deliver the kids, that wouldn't count against him, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if Katie took a week off, couldn't do it, that wouldn't count against him.
No, it would not.
But other than that, we're asking that he do 8 of those steps before moving to step 2. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then we're asking that he do step 2, which is similar to step 1, except longer. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you would be responsible for transporting the children to and from Katie Klein for these periods. Is that correct?
Me or an adult that is trusted to transport them.
And that's why you're asking the court to be allowed to schedule that counseling with Katie.
Yes, sir.
And you would give him at least 14 days notice of each session.
Yes, sir.
You would want Mr. Duckworth to be responsible for paying for Katie's services before each session. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that if he misses anything, he goes back to step 1. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Except if he misses it because of you or because of Katie. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Then you're also asking that the court, instead of going into an automatic step up after this, that we set a temporary hearing approximately 18 weeks from June 2nd of this year to evaluate the progress of Mr. Duckworth and the children. Is that correct?
Yes,
Do you think that would be in the best interest of the children?
I do.
Your Honor, if I may, is it sufficient for the court if I just refer to this summary of relief requested, or I can have her recite exactly what it says?
No, it's sufficient for you to refer to it. I can read.
Yes, thank you. I assume so. I just wanted to be,
Amazingly, I can read
Yeah.
it this day.
just wanted to make sure that no one says, well, you never got it into evidence. So-
Well, and the other thing is, I was going to say at this age, I can still see it to read it. That's pretty important too, you know?
Well, I didn't go with the small type.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Then you're also put in a provision in your summary relief requested that beginning the week of June 2nd of this year, that Mr. Duckworth be permitted up to 2 telephone calls with the children each calendar week. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that you would be allowed to monitor those calls, and that Mr. Duckworth would not discuss the litigation or even you in those calls.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you feel that would be in the best interest of the children?
I do.
Okay. Is it your ultimate desire that the children and their father have a healthy relationship?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel that you, at this point, could supervise any visitation between Mr. Duckworth and the children?
At this point, no.
Okay. There was an incident that where he came to your house recently. Let me back up. You're staying at your parents' house right now, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have you been staying there since the separation?
Yes.
Okay. And you moved out of Mr. Duckworth's house,
Yes.
and you don't own any portion of that house, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have pretty much everything that you want from that house?
Yes.
Okay. And we described an incident in your, you described it in your affidavit about Mr. Duckworth coming over, bringing stuff that wasn't yours and leaving it on the porch. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And as a result, was there an altercation or a verbal altercation between Mr. Duckworth and your father?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as a result of that, Mr. Duckworth, your father asked the police to serve him with a trespass warning. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So visitation should not be between the two of you, but through somebody else. Is that correct?
Yes.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
One thing, Ms. Gardenhire, in considering this requested relief, have you considered Mr. Duckworth's work schedule?
I haven't considered.
I'm going to hear from
his-
Mr. Duckworth, I'm sure, here in a minute about what he thinks about this, but I need to know if you have thought about the fact that he's gone 7, 8 months or 3 months and how this would work. Is this a yes or no?
No.
All right.
If I may, Your Honor,
Surely.
did you understand when we were preparing this that Mr. Duckworth was not employed anymore?
Yes.
Okay. Had he told you that he was not employed anymore?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I pass.
Ms. Harris, any questions for this witness?
Yes, Judge.
All right.
May I call you Alexis? Ms. Gardenhire?
May she call you Alexis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you can call me Amanda. How's that?
Okay.
You said that you
Now, Ms. Harris,
Yes,
you
Judge.
talk fast, and so you're going to need to slow down.
Okay, I'll do my best.
If we were in the courtroom, it might be different, but we're not. We're electronic, and so it's going to help us if you'll just kind of slow down.
I'll do my best, Judge. I only got an hour. I'll
right,
do my very best.
You're not the first person I've had to tell that, so
I hope not.
don't be alone.
Okay. Alexis, you just testified that you weren't concerned about Bruce's work schedule in considering this supervised therapeutic visitation because he wasn't working. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, do you imagine that he'll be able to continue to pay you $1,200 a month in child support if he continues to not work?
I imagine he'll have to make a sacrifice to try to find a job around where he could make the sacrifice to see his children on a regular basis instead of the random parenting that's been happening.
Okay, so if that results in a decrease in income for him, you're more than willing to decrease that child support, correct?
No, ma'am, because there's plenty of plants and refineries around here that he could still make and has been offered jobs in the past, still make the same amount that he's making now.
Okay, but you understand that if there's a decrease in income, that there will be a decrease in child support, correct?
Well, that would be the
Yes.
court's, that would be the court's
Yeah.
order, Miss Harris. And so we'll cross that bridge if we get there.
Yeah.
Right. Do you understand that the law provides for that?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
Good enough. Have you considered the cost of therapeutic visitation?
Yes, ma'am.
How much does an hour of therapeutic visitation cost?
Anywhere between, it depends on the insurance. I pay my counselors different amounts. I shouldn't say my counselor and also my daughter's counselor different amounts. So it varies upon who they're going to, and I don't know that number.
Okay, so you've asked for Katie Klein to be the therapeutic supervisor for Bruce's contact, correct?
Yes,
Do you know how much she charges per hour and whether or not she accepts your insurance?
I do not know how much she charges an hour. I just know that she was recommended.
Okay, so no, you have not considered how much this is going to cost, correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object that that's argumentative or asked and answered.
Sustained.
Okay. Do you understand that a lot of therapists charge $150 an hour?
Yes,
Okay. And if she does not accept your insurance, then a 4-hour visit for Bruce would be $600. Is that correct? Is 150 times 4 600?
yes,
Ms. Gardenhauer? Okay, thank you. And have you considered who's going to pay for that?
yes,
Bruce. Okay. And he should pay that in addition to the $1,200 a month in child support, correct?
yes.
Okay. The primary problem for the children at this time is witnessing the fighting, or at least hearing the fighting between you and Bruce, correct?
I don't presume to know what the primary problem is right this second. I think there's an array of problems, and that's why I'm in the process of seeking help from professionals that can determine what those problems are.
Okay. Do you have any responsibility or any role in these domestic violence incidences?
Being present, I was there.
Okay. You were never the initial aggressor?
No,
Never once?
no,
Did you ever chest bump Bruce to antagonize him to get him to lash out?
no, ma'am.
Okay. And you never told anybody else that?
No.
Okay. There was some talk about him being behind on the financial support in the beginning and that he had talked to you and that he would catch up with you. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's true, is it not, that he had to replace most or all of the house furnishings that you removed from the home whenever you moved out?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation. Unless there's any testimony that she's been at the house or knows what he's done.
I'll ask it a different way. Did you remove many of the household furnishings whenever you left?
The only things that I removed were my children's bedrooms because they were not residing there, and my things.
Okay.
He retained most of all the furnishings in that house.
Okay. And you moved in with your parents?
Yes, I did.
Oh, are the children's beds in storage now?
There was a bed that was already at my parents' house. I believe I brought a toddler bed of Bruce's that he outgrew. They each have their own bedroom, and then there's another bed that I had to replace because Angelina's was very old. That's in her room now.
Okay. You said that Bruce has a problem with alcohol and pills. Do you use alcohol, correct?
Very seldomly.
Okay. Is it true that in August you got extremely intoxicated with Bruce's sister and egged her ex-husband's house?
No,
That's not true.
I was not extremely intoxicated. No.
Is it true that you got a little bit intoxicated and egged her ex-husband's house?
No, I wouldn't even say I was intoxicated at all.
Okay. Is it true that that you used crack whenever you were present with Angeline?
No,
What did I say? Have you ever used crack?
no,
Have you ever used cocaine?
no,
Did you use any of these drugs whenever you were pregnant?
no,
Okay. You never used drugs with Bruce?
no.
Okay. You testified that between January until now, Bruce only spent about 36 hours with the children. Is that correct?
Yes,
Were you aware of the times that he was out of town for work?
I was aware whenever he was leaving, probably the day of normally.
Okay. So would you say, and if you can't, that's fine. Would you say if I told you that from January 10th to February 10th of 24, he was in Arizona working? Does that sound about right?
I'm sorry, will you repeat that?
January 10th of this year until February 10th of this year, he was in Arizona working?
Can I refer to my notes?
Of course.
It was January 7th to February 14th.
Pretty close to what I said, right? For about a month, a little over a month, correct?
A little over a month.
Okay. And then in February, from February 26th to March 24th, what are your notes say about those dates?
I have February 27th to March 26th.
So pretty close to our notes. Huh? So the testimony about him barely seeing the children from January till now, 60 days or more that he was out of town working, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did Bruce have a conversation with you about bringing you your belongings from the house?
We did have a conversation about it multiple times. It was never decided upon as to when.
Okay. Help me understand why it was such a big deal that he dropped the stuff off at your house.
It wasn't a big deal that he had dropped the stuff at my house. He had told me that he was going to drop it off. I didn't respond. It was what was the big deal is that the things that he dropped off were 3/4 of it was not mine. He hadn't gone through it. At that point, I had been advised to stop communication because of the visitation that happened on Friday. So to me, it was just a way to harass me and find his way in because the stuff had been there. We had had many conversations about him dropping it off eventually, never settled on a time. And if it had just been my things, or even me and Angelina and Bruce's things, I wouldn't have had a problem at all.
Okay. So you're mostly just angry that he didn't do it the way you wanted him to do it. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. I was angry that, and I wasn't even angry. Honestly, it was just frustrating that I had to go through piles and piles of things that weren't mine, that most of it was trash and had no reason being at my home. And also that when he was asked not to drop off anymore, he just kept dropping it off. It was mainly just frustrating that I had to go through everything because it wasn't mine. If you're going to drop my stuff off or my children's stuff, I would rather it just have the courtesy to make sure it's just me and my children's things.
Okay. Did you expect to be able to use that house for your storage indefinitely?
My storage? I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
This was not abusive. This was annoying, correct?
I think it was harassing because I did not tell him that it was okay to drop things off. At that point, I had taken a break from speaking with him because of the arguments and the verbal attacks that he had used on Friday and his family had used on that previous Friday. When he dropped off the stuff, it was Monday. I had called my counselor and asked.
Non-responsive.
Sustained.
Do you understand that having your stuff there after you had left him for 5 months might have been painful to him and he was ready to see it go?
Yes, and that would have been fine, but it was not my things.
Okay. Do you remember a time whenever you called Shannon over, Bruce's sister, over to the house and he was trying to sleep on the couch and you kept arguing with him and wouldn't let him sleep?
No.
The older child, Julian, how old is he?
He's 11.
Okay. And how long have you been his mother, a mother figure to him?
I've been in his life since he was 6 months old.
You're the only mother that he knows, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And whenever you first moved out, you took the child with you, correct?
Yes, I did.
And then sometime in February, whenever Bruce was away at work, you dropped the boy off with Bruce's sister, correct?
Bruce's sister? No.
Okay. Who did you drop the child off with?
He was dropped off with his grandma as previously requested by his father.
Okay. And you haven't visited the child since, is that correct?
I have seen him and I have had a few phone calls with him.
But you haven't had him come over for the weekend or visit anything like that?
No.
Okay. So you've essentially, this child that you've been his mother for 11 years, you have almost completely cut off contact with him. Is that correct?
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you trust Bruce to have unsupervised contact with that child?
No.
But yet that's what you've done. You've dropped him off with Bruce, correct?
No, I did not. I dropped him off with Bruce's mother.
You know,
Objection relevance to the line of questioning about a child who's not before.
this is very relevant because this is the same man that she's saying should only have therapeutic visits, and yet she's having him fully parent this other child.
Ms. Harris, the court understands your point. It also understands Mr. Rampelmeyer's objection. This may be more pertinent to a final hearing as opposed to a temporary orders hearing where only 2 children are involved. But I understand your point, so you need to move on.
I will.
Thank you.
One more, if this is considered. Have you called CPS in regards to that child and Bruce?
No.
Okay. Since the separation in November, there were many months that Bruce had contact with the children. Is that correct?
Will you be more specific with your question?
Did Bruce
Just asking in general?
Excuse me, I didn't hear that.
You can't both talk at the same time.
Since the separation in November, there have been many times that Bruce has had contact with the children, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There have been times that he went to gymnastics. Is that correct?
Yes.
There's been times that he went to basketball games. Is that correct?
Yes.
He's taken the children shopping for the birthday party. Is that correct?
Yes. Against me wanting him to.
Just need to answer her question.
Okay.
All of these things you allowed without the presence of a therapist. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how many times did the children come home bruised?
Other than from playing, none.
Raped?
None.
Did they come home raped? Okay. What about, did any of them come home high on methamphetamine?
No.
Okay. Your children have not been physically harmed by this man, have they?
Not that I know of.
Was there a time in January that you asked Bruce to keep the kids longer because your mom had a headache? Do you remember that text message? My mom has a headache, so it's probably a good thing that you come get them.
I would have to see the context of the text message, but at that time I could have, I hadn't been in counseling yet, and I was still just learning to navigate and still under the belief that the problems that my kids were exhibiting were due to us separating.
So what you're saying is now that you're in therapy, he should have therapeutic visits with the children. Is that correct?
I think it would be beneficial to everyone.
But your children are not unsafe with him, are they?
I believe that they are at this time.
But you don't have any evidence that they've been harmed during all these months that they've been in his care that you allowed, correct?
The evidence that I have is the behaviors and what my children say, how they feel about their father.
Okay. Do you know if Katie Klein is also in this with John and Christy?
If she's, I'm sorry,
Is she in the same counseling group with John and Christy?
I am unsure.
Do you know if she's in Amarillo or they're in Pampa?
I believe that she is in Amarillo.
And you've just recently graduated, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And during that time, whenever you were in school and Bruce was working, who was your primary support system for caring for these children?
Family members.
Which ones?
My parents and his mother.
What about the sisters?
Very briefly at the beginning, his sister, Jasmine, watched my youngest. But most of the time, whenever I was in school, the kids were in, Angelina was in school.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Rampelmeyer?
Thank you, Honor. Do you have concerns about if Jasmine were to supervise Mr. Duckworth's periods of possession?
Yes.
What would those concerns be?
Just that she has shown that what she thinks of me, and she has sent text messages, basically slandering my character in a very aggressive manner.
Do you believe that she would faithfully or not faithfully supervise his time?
I don't think she would faithfully supervise his time.
Same question, but with regard to his mother. Would she faithfully or unfaithfully? Would she be diligent or not diligent in supervising visitation of her son?
I would say not diligent.
Okay. And that's based upon your contact with her?
Yes.
Does his mother hold you in high regard?
At one point she did. I'm not sure if she does anymore.
Okay. Are physical injuries the only injuries that your children can suffer?
No.
Okay. You previously testified about their emotional injuries,
Yes.
and some of those have physical manifestations. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And those showed up during this period since separation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that it's in their best interest to continue to have those emotional injuries?
No.
Do you believe it's in their best interest to continue to have the physical manifestations that you testified about?
No.
How much stuff of yours did Mr. Duckworth actually drop off that day?
I believe probably a quarter of it.
So how would that fill up a suitcase or 2 suitcases or what? What's a general idea?
It filled up a box.
Big-
But like maybe a big moving box. The whole porch was full and it was probably about a big moving box.
Um, you did not, on that day, you didn't want to have physical contact with your husband, did you?
No,
Okay. And who called the police that day?
both Bruce and my dad.
And you had made mention of visitation the previous Friday. What happened the previous Friday?
I had thought that Angelina had school. So we had previously discussed that he was going to have visitation from after she got home from school to about 5:45 because we had church that night for Good Friday. I called him about 11:50 something, I believe, to tell him, hey, she didn't have school. I don't know what I was thinking, but I had made my son, little Bruce's, hair appointment to coincide with whenever she was getting out of school. So I didn't have to, make more than one trip. So we had gotten into an argument because he thought that I wasn't moving fast. I should have been more in communication with him about the time that I was able to move the hair appointment, which at that time I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to, but I did. And whenever the children went there, after Bruce and I argued on the phone, Angelina came home very upset. And she, I'm trying to think.
Well, just do your best because I don't want to spend.
So basically, she came home very upset. Between that visit, she said that her dad and the
Objection.
adults that were there.
Objection is to the hearsay of the child.
While the children were with Bruce, I was receiving text messages from both Bruce and his sister about Easter, where Bruce and I Bruce had already communicated that he didn't care because of the late notice that I had already made plans for Easter and that it's fine, that I didn't have to change them. But the sister messaged me and I told her basically, to keep it between Bruce and I, we'll work it out. And she didn't like that and started verbally harassing me, in which I ended the conversation. And when Bruce and Angelina came home, Angelina said the adults were around talking. Bruce was on the phone the whole time. Big brother Julian.
Objection. All of this is what the child told.
grounds?
The hearsay of the child.
Yeah, let me move on.
Okay.
So, do you decide have you ever decided where Mr. Duckworth works?
No.
He decides that, doesn't he?
Yes.
Do you ever decide when he works?
No.
He decides that, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Okay. There was in Ms. Harris's question, she asked you about an incident that took place in August and asked if you were intoxicated with Mr. Duckworth's sister. Do you remember that?
Yes.
You remember how much you had to drink?
I think that we had 2 of those little, I don't even know what they're called, like those little Smirnoff things.
They're in a can.
They're in a bottle.
Okay. Do you believe yourself to be intoxicated?
No.
Okay. What was the mood that evening with you and her sister at that time?
The mood was that she had offered the kids were asleep. She had offered, let's go for a walk. I was a total wreck after what had happened to me. Let's go for a walk. Let's go get some Taco Bell and, just kind of to lighten the mood. So she was there just offering to be a friend.
Did you all sing songs?
Yes.
What song did you sing? Do you
I
remember?
think there was a few of them, but there was one from whenever, we were way younger, probably high school years, where it says, it's not the nicest words, but we were singing it back and forth, and
where were the children?
they were sleeping at her house under the care of his mom.
Okay, so they weren't with you.
No.
Okay. As far as the cost of step 2, we had put in there a flexible, like it could be 2 or 4 hours, depending upon what he decides he can afford, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We're not mandating that he must have
4 hours.
4 hours, correct?
Yes.
Do you believe that, knowing what you know now, do you believe that the victim plays a role in whether the victim is, whether the person is a victim of domestic violence? Let me rephrase it. Do you believe that you're a victim of domestic violence?
Yes, I do.
And you spell it out in your affidavit, your declaration, correct?
Yes.
Do you believe that anything excuses what he did, what Mr. Duckworth did?
No.
Do you like it when Mr. Duckworth lashes out at you?
No.
Okay. Did you do what you need to do to try to avoid it?
At all costs.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Harris?
You said that night whenever you're out blowing off some steam with Shannon, who had your children?
His mother
And you trusted
offered to keep the children.
you trusted her at that time to take care of the kids, don't?
At that time, I did. Yes.
And she is still the same person now that she was, correct?
Yes.
Are they angry at you because you've denied access to the children, to their dad?
I don't presume to know how other people feel.
You said that you've gotten angry text messages from the sisters, correct?
She has expressed anger towards me. Mm-hmm.
They're just as safe now as they were before, aren't they?
No.
You said that Bruce could back off to 2 hours on the supervised contact, the therapeutic contact, if he couldn't afford the full 4. Is that correct?
Yes.
So essentially, Bruce gets to see his children, and they get to see his daddy, their daddy, as much as he can afford to pay for, correct?
At this time, yes.
If he can't afford it, they don't get to see him, right?
Objection argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you talk a lot about the psychological effects of on your children? Do you know anything about the psychological effects of the separation from their dad?
Considering he's not here more than half of a year and not consistently in their lives and hasn't been, yes, I do know what the effects are.
Good enough. There's a difference between someone pressuring you to have sex and someone physically forcing you to have sex. Would you agree?
Yes,
And Bruce pressured you to have sex, correct?
both.
I'll pass the witness.
Back in August, you trusted her mother?
Yes, I did.
Back in August, you trusted Mr. Duckworth's sister?
Yes, I did.
Do you trust either of them now to faithfully supervise Mr. Duckworth's time?
No, I do not believe that they would stop bad things from happening. I believe they would turn a cheek to it.
Okay. Do you think that Mr. Duckworth could save money if he stopped drinking alcohol?
Yes,
Do you think he could save money if he stopped using drugs and for which he does not have a valid prescription.
Absolutely.
Pass witness.
Are you concerned that the mom is going to let him like beat on some other woman during his possession? What is it that you're afraid that she's going to not stop?
I am concerned that most of the time, whenever Bruce was inebriated, she was trying to convince me that he wasn't. And she would even say things, well, I can't. She would even say things like, well, he can stay by him and tire him out so that you don't have to deal with him, whenever I was talking to her about him being on pills and that I was going to have a rough night. Well, just put the kids around him. And looking back now, that is not appropriate. That is not okay. And then, I mean, I don't feel like I was in the right state of mind. I was in survival mode all the time. I don't think I was thinking as logically as I am now.
Okay, pass the witness.
No
Anything
further
else?
questions, Your Honor.
All right. Let's see, recap of time. Mr. Rampelmeyer, you've got 24 minutes left of your hour, and let's see. Ms. Harris, you've got 36 minutes.
Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Rampelmeyer, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call John Klein.
Mr. Klein, please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give and the matter now in hearing before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Before we get started, let's take about a 2-minute break. I got to go get a glass of water or something. Hang on. Let's see, Mr. Klein, you've been sworn. Ms. Harris, you may proceed.
Oh, actually, he's my client, Your Honor.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
my
right. I'm
witness,
sorry,
my
Mr.
witness.
Rampelmeyer. I'm just trying to speed you along, I guess.
No questions.
Unintentionally.
He's dismissed.
Forgive me. Forgive me.
I don't know if he has been sworn in, Your Honor.
He has.
Yes, I have.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name.
John
Mr.
Klein.
Rampelmeyer, it's okay to question whose witness he is, but don't question whether he's been sworn in.
Okay.
Sworn again.
Sorry, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Please state your name.
John Klein, Klein.
And you have provided us with a copy of your curriculum vitae, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's marked as Petitioner's Exhibit number 2, as far as you know.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd offer Petitioner's Exhibit number 2 into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
Petitioner's 2 is admitted.
What is your connection with Alexis Gardenhire?
I began seeing her on January 30th of 2024.
What have you been seeing her for?
Post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and separation issues.
And you've heard the testimony today.
Yes, sir.
You've read her affidavit that was attached to the petition filed with the court.
Yes, I have.
Were the statements in today's testimony and in that declaration? I keep saying it's an affidavit, but it's technically a declaration. Were those statements consistent with what you know about her from your counseling?
With what she's told me and statements she's made, pictures, videos, text messages that I have reviewed, yes.
Is it unusual for someone to, in the past, trust certain people to take care of their children when they're in a domestic violence situation, and then with counseling discover that they should not be trusting them?
It's very common for people that are victims of domestic violence to be highly controlled and have limited access to friends, family, and not get out of that situation until things become dire. And it's very typical that they placate their abuser to not have a fight.
And is that what you have seen happen with Alexis?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have had a chance to look through the petitioner's summary of relief requested, correct?
I have.
Okay. And given your understanding of this case, is the relief requested appropriate in this case?
I'm going to object. I'm pretty sure that unless he's done a child custody evaluation, he's not allowed to make such recommendations.
I withdraw the question, Your Honor. I withdraw the question. Do you think that the provisions in the petitioner's request for relief regarding drug testing are appropriate?
They are appropriate, except I would add in legal drugs that are maybe state legal, but not federally legal. Those need to be tested for, as well as designer drugs and other uncontrolled substances and things that mimic the effects of cocaine and methamphetamine, such as MDPV and the other drugs.
From your understanding of the facts of this case, have those drugs been used by Mr. Duckworth?
Yes.
Do you believe that it's appropriate for him to take batterers intervention and prevention program?
Yes.
Is it important that it be an in-person class?
Yes.
Is it important that it be 24 weeks long?
Yes.
Why?
The shorter classes don't offer enough insight or time to reflect on their own behavior and their own thinking in order to change their system of longstanding personality traits and terms. That process takes time.
Do you think it's important in everyone's best interest that Mr. Duckworth take anger management?
Yes, I do.
And is important that that be in person as opposed to being online?
Yes, sir.
And why?
I can go online and read a 6-page handout and get 6 hours of anger management and read the book and answer the questions. I don't think that's very substantial. I think that's to meet certain court requirements or parenting requirements through CPS, but I don't find them effective.
What do you think it's in everyone's best interest that Mr. Duckworth take in-person parenting classes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And would the answer to that is, let me back up. Why in person instead of remote learning?
Remote learning can often be done very quickly, and you can skim through the highlighted passages, answer the question, print off a certificate, and it's ineffective. It doesn't provide any insight to their thinking behavior or change that needs to happen. Plus, there's no observable person to see that change or evaluate that.
Now, there have been studies about how people function when they're victims of domestic violence. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And what in general, can you tell the court, what in general happens to victims of domestic violence in terms of how they behave with regard to children, with their children?
So looking at the Duluth model of power control or post-separation, typically people who abuse their spouse use power and control over the children. They use threats of taking the children. They take off with the children. They use economic abuse, denigration, physical assault, sexual assault, every kind of manipulation tactic and isolation tactic to keep them poor and broke and not have any options to leave. There's threats of violence and many other manipulation tactics.
And have you seen some of these take place from your knowledge in this case?
They're reported by Lexi on many occasions. And also, I could see those in the text messages that I read and in the videos that I observed.
Do you think it's important that visitation not take place until the beginning of June, or access not take place until the beginning of June?
I think that's a conservative estimate, given what's going on. I would say June would be probably early, if not later.
And why is June? Why the gap?
There's not much time for children to understand how they feel and how to process years of domestic violence and witnessing that and heal and figure out how to deal with their own emotions and feelings about that. That's a very short period of time.
I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Harris?
Did Alexis admit any drug use by her to you?
No, ma'am.
Are you not concerned about any separation anxiety or attachment trauma to these children due to the separation?
Excuse me. I'm more concerned about the children's safety and them traveling with Bruce if he is intoxicated or using. The child safety issue overrides that. And the children healing is going to be essential before they can reestablish a relationship. He's basically gone the majority of the time, so Alexis is left to do all of the parenting and everything else. So that's not an issue.
Have there been any allegations of safety concerns for the children or him driving with the children while he was intoxicated?
There were safety issues concerned from Lexi, and she wanted to see that he was sober and not driving with them or having unsupervised visitation. So that's why she picked up, dropped off, and had somebody there.
Were there any allegations that actually happened? That the children were unsafe due to his drinking?
Yes.
Okay. And you would agree, would you not, that the primary concern here was them witnessing the domestic violence between their mother and father, correct?
Domestic violence, abusive behavior, erratic behavior, behaviors that Mr. Duckworth did that scared the children.
To be fair, have you heard from this man?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Have you had any sessions with Bruce?
Currently, no.
He may have allegations about Lexi that you haven't heard, correct?
He could.
You have had run-ins with him in the past, though, correct?
I don't know that I'm allowed to speak about that. That would be something he would have to sign a release for.
Do you think that your past contact has any influence on your testimony today?
Once again, I would have to have a release of information signed to provide that testimony, or be compelled to by the court.
That's a yes or no question about whether or not you feel like you were influenced.
Well, due to federal law, I really can't say anything. I would have to be compelled by the court or have a release of information to talk about him.
Are you concerned that you might have a conflict then if you might be influenced?
No.
So you can say that you don't have a conflict, correct?
I can't say either way because I don't have a signed written release due to HIPAA law, and I don't have a release from Bruce saying that I can speak about him.
Well, let me say this. The court will take judicial notice of the contents of the file and cause number 40274 in the interest of Julian Duckworth, which was disposed of on September 26, 2022. And I'll take notice of the contents of that file.
I'll pass the witness.
Further questions, Your Honor?
All right. You're done with Mr. Klein?
I am, Your Honor.
All right. And you have no more questions, Ms. Harris?
No, sir.
All right. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call Christy Ford.
All right. Ms. Ford, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give and the matter now in hearing before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God? You'll need to turn on your volume. Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Rampelmeyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your date.
Christy Ford.
And you provided a curriculum vitae that's, as far as you know, it's Petitioner's Exhibit number 3, correct?
Okay. Yes. I
Okay.
don't know what number it is, but I gave you my CV. Yes.
Your Honor, we'd offer Petitioner's Exhibit number 3 into evidence.
Any objection?
None.
Petitioner's 3 is admitted.
Before I go any farther, do you know where Katie Klein works?
Her office is located on, what is that? Western and 45th.
In Amarillo, Texas?
Yes, sir.
And does she work with you?
She does
Are
not
you in the
office
same-
with me.
She's not in the same office.
No, sir.
Do you know if she's in the same, is she in the same office as John Klein?
No, sir.
Have you
You know
worked with
she's
her?
not or she's not. Your no is no, she's not in the same office, or no,
So,
you don't know.
let me-
Rephrase your question.
I will. Katie Klein works independent of both you and John Klein.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever worked with, collaborated on any matter with Katie Klein?
Yes.
Does she do a good job?
She does an excellent job.
And you've seen her do this kind of work, therapeutic visitation supervision.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who are you the counselor for?
I'm a counselor for Angelina, the child.
Okay. How old is she?
She is going to make me do math now.
Oh, sorry.
I want to say she's 8. She's in the 3rd grade.
And what do you have an opinion about what issues Angelina is facing?
Yes.
What is that opinion?
So Angelina presents to me to have PTSD-like symptoms of anxiety, irritability, hypervigilance, separation anxiety, anxiety in general.
Have you been able to determine the cause of these issues?
It would appear to me that the causes were witnessing domestic violence in the home before her parents separated.
Do you know of any other causes?
No, sir.
Okay. And how has Angelina been very forthcoming with you, or has it been difficult?
She has really struggled with verbally processing her feelings.
Have you lately had more success in getting her to talk?
Yes.
When did you lately have that success?
I would say it's been a little bit more on each session, but yesterday I would say she talked quite a bit more.
Do you think it's important that, I'm going to scratch that question because I'll get into something you're not able to tell me. So I will pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Harris?
Ms. Ford, at the time that you signed this affidavit, it says that you had one session with Angelina. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you believe that that's enough to make these diagnoses?
I don't believe in my affidavit I made a diagnosis. And so what I put in there, she described PTSD-like symptoms pertaining to her father. So I didn't see in there where I made a diagnosis.
Okay. Whenever you say separation anxiety, is that from being separated from who?
From her mother.
Okay. Do you know that she is separated from her mother?
So anytime her mother is not around, she seems to have anxiety and seems to identify her mother as her safe place. So that is something that's come up in counseling of, we have a child playroom. Parents typically sit out in the waiting room, and it'll be about every 10 minutes, she'll go look to see where her mother is. On this last session, I did ask her mother to wait outside of the building to see if what I could observe from Angelina if her mother was not in the waiting room.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
In your affidavit, you stated that you mentioned child process high fear of her father. Can you tell the court what you mean by that?
So she talked about being very scared. And what really stuck out to me is that when Angelina processes a fear of her father, she will physically move into a small space. And so she'll get under a table. I have like a little tent in my playroom, and she'll go get in the tent. And so that really stuck out to me, because that is a sign to me that there may be more than what I would call generalized anxiety. There would be more of a PTSD-like symptom. And so when she processes that, she describes what it feels like to be scared. And what she describes is more of almost like a hypervigilant mode of she is overly aware of everything that's going on in her surroundings. She processes a fear of what's going to happen to her mother. She processes a fear of losing her mother. That's a big fear of hers. And then she tries to identify what that feeling of scared feels like, which is, that can be difficult for an adult to really describe what a feeling is. So when a child describes that of, I can't think, I get scared, what if I lose my mom? Those kinds of things, she'll start verbalizing those.
Is more counseling warranted with her?
I would say so.
Do you feel that it's going to be quite a bit of counseling that will be
Yes.
necessary?
Yes.
Do you feel that at this time she's able to have substantial periods of time with her father, or that she would benefit from more counseling first?
I would suggest she get more counseling first.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Harris?
Arrest, Your Honor.
Ms. Harris, may I call your first witness?
Okay. Judge, how much time?
Hang on a minute here. You
Yeah.
have 28 minutes, and Mr. Rampelmeyer, of course, case in chief, he's slim on time, but you got about 10 or 12 or 15.
Okay.
I have 28.
Yes, ma'am.
I will call my client Bruce Duckworth.
Mr. Duckworth, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give and the matter now in hearing before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
You may drop your right hand, yeah.
Can you state your name and date of birth, please, sir?
Bruce Marcus Duckworth.
What do you do for a living?
My occupation is a union bricklayer,
Okay. And your address?
Cranford, Texas.
Okay. And you're the father to these children, is that correct?
That's correct.
And your other son is Julian. How old is he?
He's 11.
Okay. And you heard Alexis testify that he's been in his life since he was about 6 months old. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you start and you heard her say that y'all were together about 11 years. Is that correct?
Yes.
How would you describe you and Alexis's relationship?
Toxic.
Okay. And was that all your fault, all her fault, or a little of both?
And it's both.
Okay. And is it probably for the best that you guys aren't together anymore?
Absolutely.
Okay. That affidavit made some pretty serious allegations of domestic violence and sexual assault. Have you ever forced this woman to have sex with you?
No.
Have you pressured her or guilted her to have sex with you?
I may have pressured her, but I never.
That's what men do, correct? You pressured her to have sex, but if you did not force yourself on her, is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. And any physical altercations where y'all put your hands on each other, what were those like?
They were Current, I mean, they were ongoing. There was physical abuse on both sides.
Okay. What kinds of things would she do to you?
She walked by, shoulder shrugged me, she pushed me. I've had my face slapped, I've had a lighter thrown at my face, busted my lip.
Okay. Anything else you can think of?
Grabbing things out of my hands. If you want to get into belittling and following me around the house, harassing me, it was a constant.
Okay. And did you ever put your hands on her?
Yes.
Okay. And that affidavit made some pretty serious drug allegations. What kinds of drugs have you used in the last month?
THC.
Okay. And do you smoke marijuana leaf or a wax, or how do you consume your THC?
Mainly flower.
Okay. And how often?
Daily.
Okay. When was the last time that you used anything that wasn't marijuana?
The beginning of January.
Okay. And do you remember when you guys separated?
Yes.
Okay. And when was that? In November?
Yes, November 4th.
Okay. And since that time, have you had ongoing contact with your children?
Yes.
I'm going to show you respondents 1. Are these screenshots of text messages that between you and Alexis?
Yes.
Okay. And do they accurately represent the text messages as they were sent and received?
Yes.
Move to admit petitioners 1.
We would object to hearsay in the Mr. as far as Mr. Duckworth's statements that were made for prove the truth of the matter asserted.
Sustained as to those statements.
Okay. Generally speaking, what do these text messages talk about generally?
The visitation with our kids.
Okay. So times when you're picking up, times when you're dropping off, etc.
Yes, exchanges.
And she allowed you to have visits for all those months, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did she require you to have a drug test first?
No, ma'am.
Did she require these times to be supervised?
No, ma'am.
Were there some times that you did visit at her parents' house?
Yes.
Okay. And there were a lot of times that you were unsupervised with the children, correct?
That is correct.
I'm showing you respondents 2. Did you take those pictures?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do they accurately reflect the scene that they purport to reflect?
Yes.
Move to admit respondents 2.
No objection, Your Honor.
Respondents 2 is admitted.
Look here with you. If we were in the courtroom, I'd be standing. May I approach, Judge? That's what I would do.
You may.
So these first, let's say, Judge, I got the pictures, the numbers on the bottom, but let's say pages 1 through 3. Generally speaking, what are these kids doing?
They are playing with relatives and their siblings.
Outside?
Their sibling, I should say.
Okay. And you took these pictures and you were outside with them when they were playing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then pages 4. Page 4, that left picture, the boy with the red hat, is that Julian?
Yes.
So he doesn't get to spend time with his siblings now since this restraining order has been in effect. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Has that affected him?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. And then there are some other pictures here. What's going on here at the bottom of page 5?
There was some cousins from out of town. We were bowling in Pampa. Took kind of a family photo.
Okay. With all those kids. Who is this lady on page 6 that the kids are all cuddled up with?
That is my mother. That is her grandmother.
Okay. And so she hasn't got to see the children lately, correct? And they haven't got to see their grandma.
The last contact they had was April 1st.
Okay. And they haven't got to see their older brother, correct?
In the beginning, they did. They were able to see him. And
I can't hear your client. In the beginning, they did, and that's all I heard.
can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
They don't. The kids don't get to see their brother. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, Mr. Duckworth, you do need to speak up.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Or my loud voice, try to be like that. And then page 9 is your son. What's he doing in those pictures?
On the left-hand side, he's sitting on my couch playing with his drumsticks.
Mm-hmm.
And on the right side, he went with me to lunch at Brahms.
Page 10. What's y'all call her name's Angelina, but y'all call her Angel a lot. Is that correct?
Yes.
What's she doing there on the left?
We were in Amarillo, birthday shopping for Bruce at the party supply store there. And she had found that hat and wanted me to take a picture of her wearing it. And then on the right side, I had taken her to get her nails done.
I can't hear.
I think it's the air conditioner, maybe. Here, scoot around here. I guess we'll just both get behind the desk. The speaker is. Do I need to adjust my settings somehow? Speaker. Microphone is on.
He's just stating it's the way he talks.
Okay. Well, and next to my loud voice, I'm sure it's quiet. What's going on page 11?
Page 11, this was a period in time where me and Alexis had actually gone and seen Angelina at school for one of her lunches. And on the right side, that was Angelina and Katie, or her cousin, and my niece and my daughter playing basketball.
Gymnastics here on the left.
Yes, our daughter's doing gymnastics there. And I've taken my son to Wendy's for his birthday. He wanted to go to Wendy's.
And were these children safe during these visits with you?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's marked as respondents number 5. That's 3. Oh, 3 was this financials. Never mind. Are these pictures of the kids' rooms?
Yes, ma'am.
And do they accurately depict the rooms?
Yes.
Move to admit. Petitioner or respondents 5. I had written 4, Chris, but or Judge, but I called it 5 whenever I emailed it. FYI. Move to admit. Respondents 5.
No objection, Your Honor.
Respondents 5 is admitted.
That might work. Okay. What are those?
The top picture is a photo of our daughter's room, and the bottom photo is a photo of our son's room.
Okay. And you're ready for them to come and visit, is that correct?
Yes.
Let's talk about Angel's behavioral problems. Is this something that's new?
No.
When did you first know that Angel had behavioral problems?
She really started displaying behavioral problems, I would say, back in June of 2020.
Okay. And what kinds of things at that time happened?
Back in those times, she was still locking herself in her room. At the time, her mother was unable to get control of Angelina, so I physically had to restrain her from kicking, screaming, becoming violent with outbursts, all the things.
Okay. What else did she do or refuse to do?
She would refuse to get in the shower. She would refuse to get dressed. She would refuse to get her hair brushed.
Okay. And what had been your idea at that time to do about it?
Try to walk her through, see what the problems she was having, try to talk to her, give a lot of redirections.
Okay. Did you ever suggest that the child get counseling at that time?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Me and my family both kind of pushed for her to be in counseling.
Okay. This, we didn't talk about it a lot, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but there was some talk about the incident at the school with Alexis's mother. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And was she outside the school waiting for you whenever you came out?
Yes.
Okay. Had she parked her car next to yours?
Yes.
Did you feel like she started this confrontation with you?
Yes.
Did you make any threats?
No.
Okay. Did you drop off items at her house that was 3/4 trash and 1/4 belongings?
I dropped off her belongings, and I don't agree with the trash remarks.
Okay. And what happened that day after you dropped the boxes off?
Are you talking about like? So what happened that day is I texted Alexis, let her know I was going to be bringing her belongings.
Good. Mm-hmm.
I had been packing some of the stuff up before I left town for one of my jobs. I went to Walmart. I grabbed some more boxes. I loaded my truck up. I had pulled up to her parents' house. I had stacked her stuff in front of the doorway. I had left, gone back to my house. I had grabbed a chest that her aunt had purchased, and I believe a box of her clothes, her high heels, purses, things of that nature. And I proceeded to take them to her parents' house, and I pulled up. Her and her father were going through those belongings. As soon as I stepped out of my vehicle, I was met with just screaming at me, "This is trash, this is harassment," things of that nature. He said to go ahead, her father had said to put the items out by the curb. So I did, I put them out by the curb. There was an exchange of words.
Was this just another example of her constantly criticizing you and find fault with everything that you do?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection argumentative.
I'll withdraw the question.
Sustained.
You've had unsupervised visits with these children for the last 5 months. Are you asking for a standard possession order?
Yes,
Okay. You've agreed to pay the $1,200 a month in child support. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay. If the judge orders supervised visits for a period of time before and graduates up, who do you think is best to supervise these visits?
Be Jasmine Haney,
Okay.
my little sister.
Your little sister. Do you think that you can afford to pay $1,200 a month in child support? How much is your mortgage?
It's right around 1,300.
Okay. Do you think that you can afford to pay all your bills plus child support plus these therapeutic visits?
No, I'd have to stay out of town constantly for work.
Okay. And then you wouldn't get to visit, correct?
Right.
Okay.
I didn't even hear that question.
And then you wouldn't get to visit, correct?
Right. I'd have to remain out of town working to accommodate the expenses.
Are you willing to do the BIP courses and the anger management?
Yes.
Okay. Would you prefer that be online to accommodate work?
Yes.
Do you think that Alexis has a problem with her anger?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if the judge wanted to order that for her, you think that would be good for the children, correct?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Rappelmeyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, you know that Alexis is already in counseling.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So if there was any anger management counseling, it could be done through her counselor, correct?
Yes.
How much do you spend on THC?
If I was to guesstimate, it would probably be somewhere around $50 a month.
Okay. But you use it every day?
Yes, small, very small amounts. Yes,
How much you spend on alcohol?
I don't drink alcohol unless it's socially.
You'd
So
never. My fault. You continue.
I mean, if you could give me a time frame, perhaps. I mean, in a 6-month time frame, I would say I would go out if I was out of town working, maybe 2 times. And
You
just
don't drink.
socially.
You don't drink alcohol at home?
No, I do not keep alcohol in my house.
What was the drug that you used in January of this year that was not THC?
Cocaine.
Do you think it's important that you not be under the influence of drugs while you're in possession or have access to your children?
Absolutely.
Now, you haven't done that in the past, though, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever been through work drug tested?
Yes.
Have you ever failed the drug test?
No.
But you use THC every day?
Correct.
Since Easter of this year, the beginning of this month, do you know if your mother has ever asked Alexis if she can see the children?
Since Easter, I don't believe she's had or made any contact.
Do you know if Julian has asked to see the children at any time since the first day of this month?
As a matter of fact, yes. He was just crying about it last night.
I didn't hear the last part.
I say yes. Correct. Yes, he was crying last night, actually, as a matter of fact.
But do you know if he's ever asked my client to see the children?
The contact ended with Alexis 8 days after she had dropped him off. There's been no contact. She hasn't reached out, and he hasn't wanted to reach out.
Okay. So the answer is he has not asked.
Correct.
Okay. In those rooms in exhibit number 5, you had made a statement to Alexis that at the end of March that you weren't ready to have the kids over. Isn't that true?
Correct.
When did you get those rooms ready?
Since I've been back in town, I've been really focusing on getting my house in order. Having the kids kind of come over stagnant in a house that was left in the condition it was is not beneficial for me or my children.
Now, both you and Alexis contributed to the upkeep of the house when you lived together, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. And did you buy furniture together?
And we picked together. I can say we picked out furniture together, yes.
Okay. Are you willing to do parenting classes?
Yes.
Are you willing to do them at Family Support Services of Amarillo?
Again, if the time's available and I'm in town, I have absolutely no problem doing it.
Do you have any problem being enjoined from consuming alcohol or using any controlled substance for which you don't have a current valid prescription within the 12 hours before or anytime during your periods of possession or access to the children?
No.
Do you have any problem with the drug testing that's been proposed?
No.
I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Harris?
Nothing further.
All right. Have any other witnesses, Ms. Harris?
One. How much time do I have?
You have about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'll call my client's sister. I don't think the rule was invoked, but I kicked them out anyways. So his sister, Shannon Duckworth. What's her last name? Shannon Hayden.
Mr. Rampelmeyer, you've got about 5 minutes for
Thank you, Your Honor.
cross if you need it. Ms. Harris, I did not count the time we had to wait against your time.
Oh, thank you.
All right, you may call your next witness.
Shannon Hainan.
Ms. Haynes, please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give and the matter now in hearing before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may drop your
You're
hand.
gonna have to speak up because this air conditioner and the microphone is right there. So hear how loud I speak and try to talk as loud as me. Can you state your name for the record, please, ma'am?
Shannon Hainan,
And what is your date of birth? And how old does that make you?
31.
Okay. And how are you related to Bruce Duckworth?
I am his sister.
Okay. And how are you related? You have separate relationship to Alexis, is that correct?
I was best friends with her for 15 years.
Okay. And is there also another kind of marital type relationship?
I had a child with her brother
Okay.
before her and my brother had gotten together.
So almost like a sister-in-law, correct?
Somewhat, yes.
Sister-in-law / best friend, correct?
Yes.
And did you all often have intimate conversations about your relationships?
Everything.
Okay. And did she ever admit to you that she had been the initial aggressor in any of these domestic violence situations with Bruce?
She did.
Okay. And what types of things did she say that she would do to start these fights?
She said that she would chest bump him. She would walk past him with her shoulder. She would push him. She would knock things out of his hands. She would have enough of his shit.
And she would instigate until finally things got more physical. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever see her parenting Julian in an inappropriate way?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can you tell us about that?
There was one incident in particular when I had gone over to their house unexpectedly, and she had my nephew in a corner, nose to nose. He was hyperventilating, and I told her she needed, to back off. And her mother came at me. Her mother was yelling, stormed out of the house. My nephew was very distraught.
Okay. And what was she doing to him in nose to nose?
Yelling in his face, and her face was as red can be.
Okay. So to portray Bruce as the perpetrator in all things wrong in this household is accurate or inaccurate?
Inaccurate, absolutely.
Okay.
I think the relationship was toxic on both ends, and I explained for years to both of them that they need to separate, that it is not healthy.
Objection, non-responsive to the portion after yes, or the
Sustained.
portion after toxic.
Sustained as to that portion of the answer.
Yes, sir.
Did you have some advice for them?
I did.
What was it?
It was that they need to separate and that the kids needed to get into counseling.
Okay. Was there an incident in August where you and Alexis got intoxicated together?
We did. I had just gotten home from a cruise. I had come home to their drama that had ended
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained.
What happened?
My father's kids was coming to see his children, so I had left, invited her if she would like to go to the city park with me while I was waiting for his visitation to be over with. We drank, and then afterward we went back to my house. We had drank some more. We were intoxicated, so we did not drive. We walked down to the bank so she could pull money out at exactly 12 o'clock and wound up at Taco Bell, and then went and got some eggs and egged my ex's house.
The two of you together?
Yes.
Was anyone else there?
JD. He's the man that picked us up to go pick up the eggs to go egg my ex's house.
So a friend of y'all's?
Yes.
Did you take a video of her drunk eating Taco Bell singing?
That was the night after we had done the same thing. We had gotten intoxicated, and the kids were at my house with my mom and Bruce. We were drinking Bloody Marys, and we walked to Taco Bell. No, I'm sorry, we did not walk to Taco Bell. We got a ride from my sister, so that videotape was in the back seat because we were both intoxicated.
Okay. So Alexis drinks her fair share of alcohol as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
How often would you say that you're aware of that she drinks?
Occasionally,
Okay.
not very much so.
Okay. And did you take a video of her drinking and being crazy?
I did.
And does this video accurately reflect what happened that night?
Yes.
And move to admit exhibit number 4 and publish.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor, that's fine.
Petitioner's 4 is admitted.
May I publish?
You may.
May I attempt to publish? Okay, here we go. Share screen. Is it doing it?
Mhm.
It's very short. May I publish again?
Sure.
Okay. Why do you think that that's important that the judge see?
I feel like it's being presented as she was distraught, and she was not.
Okay.
We were partying.
I
And
do have a question for your witness, Ms. Harris. Why was it only 3 seconds long? Where's the rest of it?
it was on Snapchat. It was just a quick snap.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Snap. These
You're
kids,
wel- yes, Your Honor.
these kids, Judge. This is what they do.
Well, the question was for you, Miss Hannah, so you answered it.
Was there an early November incident where you were called to their house?
Yes.
What happened?
My brother was at my residence. He was asking me advice as to what to do with their relationship. They were having some marital issues. He had left my house about 1:30, and about 1:35, I had received a phone call from him. He said, "I'm just trying to go to sleep. She won't leave me alone."
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
Judge, he's a party. Can she not?
I was there.
She's
Okay. Without saying what he said, what did you witness?
Okay, I had witnessed Alexis progressively trying to argue with him. I had seen the pillow in the blanket where he was trying to sleep. He was just trying to go to sleep. That was the day that I believe that there was a door busted down when there was no door busted down.
Just testify about what you saw, okay?
Okay, that's what I had seen.
He had his pillow and blanket on the couch,
Yes.
and she was berating him, not letting him
Yes.
go to bed.
And
Okay.
all he was trying to do was go to sleep.
Did you see Angel and little Bruce at your daughter's birthday party recently?
Yes, that was in March 24th.
Okay. And how did they react to seeing Julian?
Angelina and Bruce both ran up with affection, love, running to him, giving him hugs. And when Alexis had walked through the door, they had noticed her walk in and walked away from Julian as fast as they could.
Now, you can't say what Julian has said, but what is his demeanor whenever he talks about Alexis or potentially seeing her?
He picks his fingers, his shoulders go up.
objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Judge, it's relevant because all of the problems from Angel are being blamed on Bruce, and I just need this testimony in to show that Alexis has a part to play in this as well.
She can answer.
What do you see from Julian whenever Alexis is mentioned?
With the understanding that the court will give it the appropriate weight.
Of course, Judge, yeah.
I see that he starts to show signs of anxiety. He picks his fingers, he starts to space off, and his body goes tense.
Okay. And what has Alexis herself, y'all were best friends for 15 years, is that correct?
Yes, even before she and my brother had gotten together, yes.
And y'all talked about everything, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What has she admitted to you about her drug use?
She smoked crack cocaine when she was pregnant with Angelina. She had done her fair share of cocaine with my brother and a few mutual friends of ours, and her and I were potheads for the last 10 years. She just quit smoking because she got too high off of her sister's dab pen.
Okay, and when was that?
Say about 2 years ago.
Okay.
I'm sure if she did a hair follicle, you'd see that as well. I'm not-
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Okay, Judge. Pass the witness.
Mr. Rampelmeyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, you testified about the incident in November where you claimed that you saw the pillow that your brother was using.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You weren't there when he came home, were you?
He was gone for about 5 minutes from my house. I live a block over.
Okay, just please answer my question because I'm only allowed a little bit of time. You weren't there when he came home to that house, were you?
I was not.
So you don't know what happened.
I was not present to see exactly what was happened within
So
those
you-
5 minutes. No.
You did not see what happened when he came home.
I did not. I just know that there was time for a pillow and
Okay.
a blanket to be put down.
Objection, Your Honor, to the non-responsive portion.
Sustained.
You have had very little contact with Alexis since the party's separation. Isn't that true?
That's not true, Your Honor. Her and I were actually snapping each other every single day. I was still seeing my niece and nephew.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained. You just need to answer the question.
Okay,
You can
no,
do it yes or if you can do it yes or no, so be it.
okay. Yes, we have had contact up until.
Okay, you've already answered the question.
Okay,
Okay. Did you, since the separation, how many times have you physically seen each other?
maybe 15, 20 times.
Okay, how long were those times?
Sometimes they, okay, maybe that I'm wording that wrong. They vary. Sometimes an hour at the pool, sometimes 5 minutes in passing.
Okay.
But
The August incident, that took place after your brother beat up my client. Isn't that true?
that is not true.
And why do you say that was not true?
I was not there. Like I said, I was getting off of a cruise. And most times after a situation, it would end up at my house because I was my brother's support system along with my mom. And Lexi would go to one of our houses versus her parents' house, which is a few blocks over as well, knowing that that's where my brother would go for support.
And that was all before the separation, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was, do you know that she's in counseling?
I do.
Okay. And do you know that she started counseling since the separation?
I do.
Okay. So this was all before she started going into counseling, isn't it true?
The August incident?
What you just described about her going over to your family's house was before she went into counseling, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know that, are you aware that she's now living with her parents?
I am aware.
I'll pass a witness.
Ms. Harris,
Nothing further.
you rest?
I do.
Any
Rest, Your
rebuttal?
Honor.
Any rebuttal?
Sir.
Any rebuttal? I mean,
No,
you
Your Honor.
rest. That's fine. Close,
Close, Your Honor.
close.
Close. Can I get my client, or are you going to allow us to have an argument?
Well, sure. I mean, this isn't a jury, but you can certainly summarize what you think, but you do need to get your client in. He needs to be present.
Yeah.
Mr. Rampelmeyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. The testimony is agreed on both sides that there's been domestic violence. Mr. Duckworth has admitted domestic violence. So pursuant to the family code, the parties should not be appointed as joint managing conservators. Testimony is clear that Mr. Duckworth, everyone agrees that he's been an absent parent for whatever reason. They may disagree, but they it's clear that he's the absent parent. It's clear that especially the daughter who's has the most the most evidence about emotional and psychological issues clings to her mother. So we would submit that the court should appoint Alexis as sole managing conservator and Mr. Duckworth as possessory conservator. There's evidence about not him that would support Mr. Duckworth not coming to the children's school and to their extracurricular activities. I believe there's sufficient evidence about no visitation, but if there is going to be visitation, then the alternative possession that's described. Your Honor, there is testimony that Mr. Duckworth can find work in the Pampa area. He decides where he's going to work and how he's going to work. There's no testimony that he can't find work in the Pampa area. I think it's these are hard decisions, and it makes me glad I'm not a judge. They have to weigh these in, but what we tried to do, Your Honor, is put forward what would be in the best interest of the children. We're asking the court to permit the drug testing, which Mr. Duckworth agrees to, the batterers intervention, anger management, and parenting classes, which he agrees to, although we would ask that it be in person and not online for the reasons stated by John Klein. We believe that in addition to the court standing order, that the temporary injunctions that we've requested are more than appropriate in this case. It wasn't discussed by Mr. Duckworth, but the telephonic access, we're still urging that. And I think that goes to show that my client is not trying to destroy a relationship between the children and their father, but rather to have it reset on much sounder grounds in which there's not use of alcohol, not use of drugs, to which his anger is controlled. And we believe that he needs to come out of denial and accept what he has done in the past. We believe it's also appropriate to set a new temporary hearing, as we requested, to see how these efforts are working or not working, and then therefore monitor this process. These children did not get into this situation overnight, and it's going to take a while for them to be healed. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Harris?
Thank you, Judge. So far as visitation goes, I'm going to argue that they should be, or for conservatorship, they should be named joint managing conservators. He testified that she was often the aggressor, and so did the sister testified that she admitted to her. So far as possession goes, no access. People who smoke methamphetamine at least get supervised visits. So I think that the no access should be off the table. In any event, Alexis trusted Bruce to have these children for the last 5 months because she had good judgment and she knew that they would be safe. A standard possession order is appropriate here. Even if you disagree, if you do require some stepped up visitation, I ask that it be supervised by his sister Jasmine Haynen. I think the testimony was that Alexis was worried that she was mad at her, or that she didn't like her, but not that she wouldn't keep the children, or just some kind of blanket statements that she didn't trust her, but no real just those conclusory statements, not what could happen, because we don't have any evidence of physical abuse. I have no doubt that these children have been psychologically harmed by these people's fighting, but now that they're not together, hopefully that will stop. And the children can spend time with their mother and spend time with their dad, rather than just one parent, whenever both parents were very much involved in these fights. A standard possession order, or if you want it supervised in the beginning, Judge, that it be supervised by his sister Jasmine. He agreed to the drug testing. I just worry. He certainly could benefit. The children could benefit from these classes. I do request that he be allowed to take those online. That trip from Pampa to Amarillo can be onerous, and that there's no evidence that he has caused any ruckus at school or at extracurricular activities. And just to deny him access to his children at those events where there's been no evidence of wrongdoing is unfair, Judge. It's unfair to the children that they aren't getting to see their daddy. We've agreed on child support and medical and dental. Judge, Alexis trusted him to have access with the children all these months. And for her to now decide, oh no, wait, especially now that it seems like the problem has been removed. The problem was they're fighting in front of the children. They're not fighting in front of the children anymore. So I ask that you grant our requests.
Anything else, Mr. Rampmeyer?
Yes, Your Honor. If the problem was that they're not fighting anymore, then the symptoms shown, especially by the Angelina, would have gotten better, and they haven't. There's expert testimony by Christy Ford that there are serious issues there, and the child's afraid of the father. These adverse effects are triggered by Mr. Duckworth, by his presence. The evidence showed that even his testimony only addressed what happened when he was present. So when you allow him to be around the children without having a counselor there, you are helping these children continue to have these PTSD symptoms. I would say also, Your Honor, with regard to my client, I believe it's a misstatement to say that she trusted Bruce over the last few months. Part of it was she started counseling in January. And the other thing too is, people are not necessarily aware of what their legal options are and what they can and can't do. So I would not necessarily characterize it that she's trusting him, but more exactly that she had no other options that she knew of.
These are difficult decisions. There's no doubt about that. As counsel knows, Ms. Gardenshire, Mr. Duckworth need to know. Mr. Klein knows, Ms. Ford knows, this court does what's in the best interest of the children. That's the paramount public policy of this state. If it's not in Ms. Gardenshire's best interest, if it's not in Mr. Duckworth's best interest, but it's in the best interest of the children, then so be it. First of all, the court will approve the child support agreement as presented. Let me just say a couple of things in regard to the state of the law. And that is, and you can look this up, counsel, Pena versus Pena, 8 Southwest 3rd, 639. It's a Supreme Court case, 1999. Which basically says, and this is just the annotation, major issue of physical abuse or history or pattern of domestic violence is not dependent on its cause, but on whether it happened. And then, of course, that is an annotation to section 153.004 of the Texas Family Code. And not only may the court not name the parents joint managing conservators in situations of domestic violence, but also subsection D states the court may not allow a parent to have access to a child for whom it is shown by preponderance of the evidence that there is a history or pattern of committing family violence during the 2 years preceding the date of the filing of the suit or during the pendency of the suit. So this court may not allow Mr. Duckworth at this point in time to have access to these children. So Ms. Gardenhire will be named sole temporary managing conservator or temporary sole managing conservator. I never know where to put the temporary. Mr. Duckworth will be temporary possessory conservator. Mr. Duckworth will be enjoined from attendance at the children's school and extracurricular activities. At this point in time, and also based upon not only a preponderance of the evidence, which includes the testimony of Christy Ford and Mr. Klein, then he will not have access to these children until further order of this court and completion of a batterer's intervention and prevention program offered by Family Support Services of Amarillo that is 24 weeks long, and he must participate in that in person. He will participate in an in-person anger management program, and he will participate in parenting classes in person at Family Support Services of Amarillo. On all of these, he will file his certification of completion with the court. And when that happens, and there will also be random drug testing, I would inquire, Mr. Rampelmeyer, who do you propose to determine when that testing takes place?
The way we put it in there, Your Honor, and was just our proposal, is that she would notify him between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., and then he would have 8 hours to comply. That would give him that day to find a place. The problem we have is that we believe, and the evidence shows that he has a history of cheating on drug tests. So we don't want to give him more time so he can take further measures to defeat a drug test.
I understand that.
What we had proposed in negotiation was a hair follicle no more than once every 3 months.
I don't remember that, but maybe that was in your counter. Sorry, it may have been in your counter. Sorry, I apologize.
Well, sometimes when you have hearings where each side is and the issues are pretty heavily contested, it's kind of ridiculous for the court to say, y'all work that out. But Mr. Rampelmeyer and Ms. Harris, if you think you can work that out on when the random drug testing will take place or the manner in which the drug testing will take place, at any rate, it's going to be paid by Bruce Duckworth. Then have a go at it. If you cannot work it out, then you can request a brief hearing before this court, and I'll order what I think is appropriate.
Is there any guidance from the court as to its frequency? I think that would help because, well, in ours, we proposed up to 1 time a month versus once every 3 months. Is there any guidance there?
That's difficult because a hair follicle, give you 90 days?
Right, but there's several types of tests that could be done. And so the hair, we were proposing any kind of test.
I would say no less than 1 time a month.
Okay. Or no more than 1 time a month, I think you mean.
No, I mean no less than 1 time, at least 1 time a month.
Okay.
But you don't want a hair follicle no less than 1 a month, do you?
I might.
Well, you tell me.
Y'all can talk about that.
Yeah.
If you can't work it out, then I'll order what I think is appropriate.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and order that the 2 items that you requested in addition to the court standing order, that Mr. Duckworth is enjoined from being present at or interfering with the children's individual counseling, school activities, and extracurricular activities. While I'm in that, Ms. Gardenhire will continue counseling, as will Angelina. And I guess I'll let Mr. Klein or Ms. Ford weigh in on this as to whether Bruce William, the 4-year-old, either one of you want to weigh in on that?
I mean, I've worked with, go ahead, John.
I think he would benefit greatly, even as young as he is, because of his experience and just the turmoil.
Well, he certainly witnessed it from the evidence. Ms. Ford, would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Then he will also be included in counseling. And as stated before, well, Ms. Gardenhire and Mr. Duckworth need to understand, and I'm sure your lawyers will explain this to you, but these are temporary orders. This does not, the final order very well may be the same, it may be different. I will tell you that if visitation takes place at some point in time, then yeah, he needs to be, Mr. Duckworth needs to be enjoined from consuming alcohol or any controlled substance for which he does not have a current valid prescription within the 12 hours before. And I'm going to take issue with the word or. It should be 12 hours before and during each of his periods of possession or access to the children. And I'm sure he agrees with that. So,
Judge, did you order the telephonic access?
I don't know. I didn't hear much about the telephonic access.
Requested by petitioner.
Yeah, Mr. Klein, what do you think about that? And I'll let Ms. Ford weigh in on that as well.
I have really mixed feelings about them having any access until they have some time to heal and a period of which they don't have any interruptions, after which I think it would be appropriate.
Ms. Ford?
I might make an exception if Angelina requests to talk to her dad. I don't think that she should be told no. And so I would probably put that exception in there, and that she should know that she can ask, but that would be the exception I would put in there. That, you know, during her healing process, I go at her pace. And if she decides, hey, I want to say hi to my dad, I don't think she should be told no to that.
All right, your points are well taken. So ordered, Mr. Rampelmeyer.
So I want to make sure. So if Angelina asks, then there's telephonic access?
There could be.
Okay.
I don't know, one time a week, one time a month, every time she asks.
It's my impression right now, I don't think she's going to ask. But at the point
that was what I got from the evidence.
I don't think she's going to ask, but so I don't see her, say, 1 o'clock in the morning or something saying I need to call my dad. But I think at the point that she does start maybe wanting that contact, I would hate to have to wait for another court hearing for her to be able to do that.
Here's the solution to that. You get in touch with Miss Gardenhire, and she can get in touch with her lawyer, who can get in touch with Miss Harris, so that everybody will be on the same page, because you cannot contact the court.
Okay.
Can we say at the frequency that the child requests?
Do what?
Would there be an objection to at the frequency that the child requests?
I defer to Ms. Ford.
I think that's fine.
All right. Did I forget anything?
Yep. May we have the provisions that Mr. Duckworth may not discuss the litigation or the mother during these calls?
Certainly. Yeah.
May I speak, Judge?
You may.
I would reiterate the fact that there's other chemicals and designer drugs that are being used, and those be tested for as well. They're not controlled substances, but they are psychotropic drugs that are not regulated, and maybe they're federally legal, but not state legal, or vice versa.
All right. If you, Mr. Rampelmeyer, if you need the language for that, you can get in touch with Mr. Klein.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to require, wait a minute, Ms. Harris. This will cover your issue. I'm not going to require that Ms. Gardenhire or Mr. Duckworth sign this, but I will require that the lawyers approve it as to form.
Okay.
So if you have an objection as to form, Ms. Harris, then you can address the court with that. And I will expect objections in writing. Don't call me, or actually, I guess you could email me. Make sure you include the other lawyer.
Yeah, I'll do my best to work it through with Ms. Harris.
I guess my question for Mr. John was like a 5-panel, a 10-panel, what type of drug test do you recommend?
On something like that, probably an immunoassay, urine test that's sent off to a lab or something along that lines, where it can detect any chemical in the body.
Did you get that, Chris? I did not.
I think so.
Amino what?
Assay.
Immunoassay, where they send off the sample and run it through a gas chromatograph to detect like the MVPD and Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, Delta 12, all the semi-legal stuff that's still psychoactive and you can't parent when you're high.
I think your point's well taken.
Okay.
All right. Good luck to both of you, but primarily good luck to your children.